Well, for me it's a pleasure to introduce you Ethel Baraona. In fact, it's, as you know, because also he's full of friends and he's very good, but he's one of the most dynamic persons of Barcelona that understand that the architecture is not only to be a kind of technique or a practicer, but it also is a fantastic, how to explain, knowledge linked with the culture, in fact. And for me, this is the best important thing, to understand that architecture is culture, and not only profession, not only academy, etc. No? And at the same time, I think that we have something in common, that is Quaderns. Because for me, Quaderns, as you can imagine, it was a very important part of my life a lot of years ago. And I think that now this link with the new era of Quaderns, with the new energy of Quaderns. Quaderns always was a very curious space, magazine of the order of the architect. It will be a terrible thing, a very, I don't know, boring space, but always Quaderns has been a dynamic space of debate. Well, probably not always, but until the José Luis Mateo era, and the idea of the magazine has been always a transfer of progress and innovation in the ideas and in the culture of the city. No? But Ethel is more than this, evidently. As you know, that is an architect. She's involved with the transformation of the city. She's involved with the quality of this transformation, and this is also the capacity to project and the capacity to diffuse and to think and to propose ideas and to share ideas with people. And this is very important. It's very generous, Ethel, and I like a lot this work, this capacity to put together people and to do networks, to create networks of knowledge. Is Felipe here? Always we are trying this, a lot of people in this city, to try to do networks and not competitive spaces. No? Baraona, now this is the most academic presentation. Is a critic, writer, curator, co-founder of the independent publishing house dpr-barcelona, and editor of Quaderns. Her network is a real hub, and I think it's a very interesting word, hub. Well, the design hub in my era was the idea of transfer, but a hub is a node, is a crossing point, a hub linking several publications and actors of architecture and theory. Working as contributing editor for different blogs and magazines, she has written articles for Volume, Domus, the New City Reader, and Mass Context. She has done also books. I think that you have explored a lot of formats. No, a lot. This is very good. Formats, no? And always, this is a very important thing. The diffusion is not only a kind of neutral platform. It's a project also. It's another project for the architects. It's a project in format book, in format web, in format, but it's a project with other materials, with other things, with other spaces, but it's also a project. We are not journalists, we are architects, we work with projects. The journalists work with another kind of reflection. And in this case, always your text and your platforms are projects of architecture and culture at the same time. No? She has been invited to present her work in events like Postópolis, and lectures in Athens, Jerusalem, Oslo, etc., etc. No? Associate curator for Adhocracy, first commission for the Istanbul Design Biennial. I didn't know this, I'm sorry. No, I didn't know. Mira, this is, and exhibit at the New Museum, New York City in May 2013, and Lime Wharf, London, summer 2013. Curator with César Reyes, with the big partner of the third Think Space program with the Team Money. And well, with César Reyes, you found dpr-barcelona, an independent publishing company based in Barcelona, founded by Ethel and César, and focused on architecture and city issues. Because it's not only the idea of architecture, it's the idea of city as a space of exchange and culture and spatial, why not, spatial process and qualities. No? This is another thing that always we talk about this, but because we have the idea that we can transform the things in a qualitative way. It was a, I don't know, an economic way or a business way or a speculation way, it will be another kind of format, another kind of spaces. But the space is a space of creation, the city is a space also of creation, of innovation, of progress, and for you this has been also your focus, no? Culture as creativity and not only as erudition or a kind of institutional culture. Their projects, both digital and printed, transcend the boundaries of conventional publications, approaching to those which are probably the titles of architecture in the future. And this idea of progress innovation is evidently in your work, in Quaderns. For this we have a lot of complicity with you, Ethel, because we have this, this vector that we believe in the capacity to progress.
It's an emotional connection.
Exactly. And to have the capacity to go away and to do more. No? Thank you, Ethel, to be with us. Thank you also, César. And well, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Manuel. And thank you, Silvia and Areti, for the invitation. Well, as you were saying, we are, as architects, used to work with the space, with creativity, but we sometimes forgot that architecture is linked with several other practices and combinations. Especially in the past 6-7 years, we have seen the emergence of a lot of new technologies. Maybe you recognize something here. This is Bitcoin mining. This is the famous drone designed by Amazon to deliver your, the things you purchase in 30 minutes. It's not working yet, but they are trying to develop. This is Norman Foster's project to colonize the moon with a building done by the 3D printer. You will know what this is, I suppose, but you will know better when you see this. Sometimes we are designing a lot of stuff, but without really questioning why. And that's why we want to recover this quote, this question by Cedric Price. He wrote this 50 years ago, but I think it's more actual than ever, because since the economical crisis came, as a reaction we started constructing and building and exploring all these new technologies. But to find the answer to Cedric Price, maybe we need to start thinking on the context where these all motivations and new projects come from, and try to find the basis for these new designs, as you are studying here in the IAAC with advanced technologies, digital tools, etc. So all of this started in 2008 as this big crash. It has roots before, but in the US, or we can see here in Spain, this is a wonderful photo by Julia Schulz-Domburg for her project Mother Ruins, when she is trying to map all the skeletons of abandoned promotions that were left in Spain after the real estate bubble, that had as a consequence all the evictions by the people who wasn't able to pay the mortgage. But also the consequence was for the people, but we can see that there is always people taking advantage of that. You can see here a real estate business taking advantage of the empty buildings and empty houses. So it all drives us to this. If we don't have money, we have to think, but don't think superficially, and don't think only in the technological world, but to contextualize, to remember the roots, try to analyze, to see why we are developing each project. After this moment, the first reactions started. All the big crash was in 2008, and the reactions started in Europe in 2010. This was the big first manifestation in Europe, in Athens, and after this one, we all were able to see this here in Spain in 2011. And the first reaction to this big crash was in a way of taking the street, trying to protest, but we didn't have clear against what we were protesting, against politics, against corruption. And after that, when the Occupy Wall Street movement started to protest also, was the moment when we started to focus our attention on the fact of money. Because behind all this crisis and all this big crash and all these people living in the street because of the evictions, behind all of that, there is always money. And at this moment, people start thinking properly on that and start analyzing why was the root of the problem. In the project Occupy George, that was a way to put visibility to this problem. They were delivering all these stamps to put on the bills, and we're protesting not only against money that nobody knows what it is. We have the bills in our hands, but we don't know. The bank tells you that it's worth 5 euros or 10 euros, but where is that money? So they start protesting against inequality and not against the fact or the issue of money. And this is that we see the bills and we believe the banks that they tell us, okay, this worth 100 pounds, but we never know because they can change the value of money whenever they want. So maybe the big problem is that we are believing in facts and issues that we don't know why we believe in that. Maybe it's cultural or inherited because our parents tell you, okay, take your 5 euros to go to the school, and you doesn't question yourself anymore. But capitalism is everywhere in our cities. It leads the way, the transportation system, the buildings, the stock markets. Everywhere we are in the city, there is the fact of money and economy. One very powerful example is the Black Friday, that it's on the 28th of November each year. It started in the US, but now we have it everywhere and also on the internet. That people make big queues to buy things with a big discount, but we never question the other kinds of queues that are behind these products. You know, to having people consuming without wondering if you really need something. There is a lot of people treated with inequality in other countries. Or also, we were able to see that with the Occupy Wall Street movement, this mask from the movie Vendetta, representing Guy Fawkes, start being used by Anonymous as the representation of the struggles and the protest. But even that has been taken by the capitalist market. And now you can find this in the street. Before every protest is announced, 3 days before, people start selling the mask because they know they will make a lot of money. So it's very, for me, it's very inquietante. How do you say inquietante? Very worrying that we don't realize these facts. And that's why for the poster we use the project by White Think Tank when they analyzed the New Babylon by Constant as a representation of all our dreams, our utopias, and the avant-garde projects, and how also they have been capitalized and colonized by shopping malls. They use this is very controversial because they use the Soudale shopping mall that was the first closed and biggest shopping mall in the US. It was opened in 1956. Now it's not the biggest anymore, but how our dreams and ideas are always colonized by capitalism. And at the end, we are living like that now. I took this picture walking around in London, going to visit the Robin Hood Gardens before they are demolished. And I think the message is really powerful. So we need to react to all of this, but not reacting only protesting on the street. We have other tools because we are architects, designers. So after 2008, maybe 2-3 years after, we start witnessing the emergence of new projects with different names. Do it yourself, do it with others, open design. Well, I know the next lecture will be about open design, so it's good, self-production. And all this emergence was so full of new projects that it's different to find the trace of all of them in the internet, because there is a lot in Latin America, in Asia, in China. And trying to analyze what happened when we were working in Adhocracy, that Manuel was, by the way, you have a project from the IAAC in Adhocracy. We take the bike with the maker booth printing food to the exhibition. We were trying to analyze why all the emergence of this project and new platforms. And I think that the most important thing we learned from the struggles and the protests was the capacity of the people to self-organization. And they took this capacity of self-organization to the design world and to the architectural world. I will try to explain these facts using some examples. Not all of them are new, because I want to come from those years until now. And one of the projects that I find it's very interesting in this evolution is the Free Universal Construction Kit. These guys, it's a group of independent designers, designed this construction kit for children that can be 3D printed, but it's not a new model. They took the most known toys as Lego, Sob, Duplo, and what is most interesting in my point of view is the way they took the designs without making any illegal infractions with the patents or all, because they started researching and they went to the original designs back more than 20 years ago. So all the patents have been closed until now. And then they make the kits and design new parts for make combinations between all these 10 kind of toys. So it's a very interesting project to rethink how we can design and how we can share freely in the internet, and how people can take these designs, use them, or share new designs. Because everything is licensed under a Creative Commons license, and you can download the files, the STL files, to use in the 3D printer. And then if you find any difficult to mixing some toys and you want to design a new link, a new piece, you can then upload and share your piece. And going further, for more complex design, in Adhocracy we have this project started by Thomas Lomy in Belgium. It's called Open Structures, and they want to make a more organized kind of design for make it easier for the people to understand the designs and to mix up different pieces. So what they first designed was a grid. They have this grid, very easy to understand because it's a quadrangular grid and have the points in the middle, so everything that is designed fits with the nodes. So it's very easy, the combination of different pieces by different designers. One example is this piece, that you can see all the holes works with the grid and all the division. And with these boxes you can make a lot of designs. I only bring one because of the time for the lecture, but you can go to the website. And this is one of the pieces they designed for children. And all these pieces are on the website. You can download all the model and make your own combination. But they are growing also in scale. Thomas Lomy, the past year, designed all these pieces. I don't know if you have any idea what it is. But with these pieces, you have the grid here at the end, in the other layer. He designed a complete kitchen. So all the furniture, but also the pieces, the small pieces, are designed with the same grid. And as the previous project, it's also everything on the internet. You can design your own pieces and upload, because, for example, my kitchen is longer than that, or has an L form, and I need another piece here. I can design it and then share it if anybody has the same shape of kitchen as I have. So it's an open source and collaborative project. But all these projects have started growing and growing, because, as I told you before, there are a lot of them in the internet. And we arrived to the wiki house that maybe you know here, because it's very related with some of the things you study here, that was designed by Indy Johar from 00 in London for the Shenzhen Biennale in 2009. They were taking the same ideas as the Open Structure project, but for design a complete shelter, not only the components inside the house. So they designed all the pieces that you can cut with a laser cut with CNN technology. And then they designed this. This was the first model they did. They have all the pieces also on the internet. And they were trying to make a whole project with this scheme we were talking about, that all the community can work with this, that everything will be open source. But suddenly they found the same problem that in the open structure projects the guys has already solved. They design and then share the pieces, but it wasn't allowed to upload new pieces at that moment. So if you don't have a space that fit with that structure, you don't use that. So the website was closed, or static, not closed, but was static for 1.5 years or something like that. And now they have reopened with the possibility that every people can transform the designs, trying to adequate to your own necessities, and you can share it if somebody has the same needs that you have. So now it's really becoming open source and collaborative until the past 6 months. And I think it's a very interesting step for going further. But also, we started the lecture talking about money, and also related with all these projects, on the same years start new ways of trying to trade, found projects, exchange, because people also found the need, okay, we are doing open source stuff, we are sharing everything on the internet, but I need to pay the rent, no? So where is money here in this collaborative world? So also the experimentation started in that sense. One of the most recent or most talked currency nowadays are bitcoins, because it's a very controversial issue. It's a cryptocurrency, it's a digital money that only exists on the internet. You can have a digital wallet in your iPhone or in your desktop, in the computer, but you don't have the pieces, the money. So this has driven some people to think that it's not real, or that you cannot trust on that. So it's a very interesting experiment, in my opinion, because me neither, I don't know if it works or not, because lately in the most recent news, in the past 2 months, we have also read news about one guy who was making money laundering. And also I knew that as bitcoins are only stored in your computer, in a dump in London, they found a hard drive with more than 1 million bitcoins inside, and people was going crazy trying to find which computer was the one with the bitcoins. So what I'm trying to explain is that we never know if it will work, if it will stay for longer, but at least we are living a moment of experimentation, and this is really good, because we are trying to change and shift our mind, our way of behaving. For example, in Berlin, that it's always more advanced than here in Spain. We are more conservative, I think. There are streets when you can buy hamburgers with bitcoins. You go and you download the QR code and you pay with your bitcoins. And this also makes people complain that the traditional business model are taking advantage of bitcoins. So all these controversies are really interesting to discuss. For example, in the latest US campaign, electoral campaign, this guy who was trying to be the senator accepted also Bitcoin donations. And it was like a very, something really new in a country that is so conservative in some terms. So it's really fascinating trying to understand how this works. In dpr-barcelona, we are also trying to experiment to not only come and talk about this and explain that bitcoins are a cryptocurrency or whatever. We are trying to experiment, and all of our ebooks that doesn't need physical transportation, etc., and that people can download on the internet, we are trying to sell them on bitcoins. And you can guess we haven't sold anything because it's and what I found most funny here is that people complain about the big companies and the monopolies. But we have also the ebooks on Kindle, on Amazon, and for the people it's easier to click here than to click here. The books keeps moving in Amazon, and nobody has tried to buy it with Bitcoin. So it's also for us, we were never expecting to become rich or to sell a lot, but we were trying to really know what we were talking about when we talk about economy, and to test the people's reaction. And this also makes us think how we are always trying to innovate, but it's so difficult to go to the roots and try to change our behaviors. No? Because it's easy for us, we have more than 10 years used to buy on Amazon. So it's very easy. The password is already there and you are auto-logging, so you could go. And so why don't take the time to try 30 minutes to try to change and start a new account and try to discover by yourself, by ourselves, if these new models can work or not, but try it. Don't simply listen or come to lectures with people like me that are talking about this new stuff. Try to experiment in our real daily life. We were contributing to a magazine with an SI, so we were researching about Bitcoins, and we found that the creators of Bitcoins have plans to send, they are afraid these people, it's very, you can imagine that they are hackers and very geek people, and they have plans to send a CubeSat, a small satellite, to the space with a hard drive containing Bitcoins, just in case the government banned the internet signals. So if we have an internet shutdown, the people can still survive exchanging and trading with Bitcoins, but using radio waves instead of the internet. So all these speculations are really interesting for me because I can imagine it's the same that you are doing here in the upper floors, no? What will happen if we do that and if we mix this material with the other? So trying to think also in the way that the designs you are doing can get to many people, as much people as possible, how you will sell them, or if not selling in the traditional way, exchange them. I think it's part of the things we need to rethink. And the other economical model that we all know now, and that was born from the past 4 years, is crowdfunding. And the first crowdfunding campaign, I don't know if you have, how many of you have support any project on crowdfunding, on Kickstarter? Huh? Only 4, 5, 6? Oh my God. So it's not a successful model then. No? Wait, we have support 2 or 3, I think. One was from the IAAC, the sensors. Yeah, okay. we have the Arduino in our table and we don't know how to use it, to be sincere. But well, you will tell me later. So yes, this reaction make you think that, for example, this was one of the most successful projects in Kickstarter, this one and the other one. Coincidentally, both of them are related with Apple and the iPhones because everybody wants to have a new gadget. But what happened? What makes us think that not all these projects or experimentations are perfect because they don't get to the roots of the problem? That people is designing new things, they get a lot of money because they raise more than $10 million, but at the end they were overpassed and didn't have the time to produce all the clocks that all the bands for the clocks that people request, and also the deliveries were so delayed that all the clients and the supporters were complaining. Yeah, and I think that the problem is that we are finding new ways to collect the money with our friends. But now I remember also the anecdote that geek people and the hackers called Kickstarter the 3F project, friends, family, and fools. So it's very because you support because your friend or somebody recommend you, but then the delays on the deliveries are so big that they don't realize when you put with all your emotions and your good feelings a project, you don't realize all the process that is behind the simple production of the object. You need to make distribution, you need to make a lot of things that are not considered on these projects. So this is again the motivation from our part to research to the roots, to try to change from the basis. Because we see also the same kind of model from Kickstarter, but using Bitcoins, they have created this very recently. And as you can see here, all the projects are empty. There should be few. Because we are repeating the same model, trying to innovate with one part of the project, but repeating the same old obsolete model with the other part of the project. So I think that the quote that mostly well describes this is this, because we have a lot of challenges in front of us, but we haven't discovered how to think in the same wavelength of the challenge we have. Because we were educated in another way, or culturally we are used to live in the same parameters without trying to take the risk to make new things. So I think that the most important thing at this point that we have talked about all these projects, criticize the part that doesn't work well, is to start using design not only to produce new objects, but as a critical tool. We need to think critically if we really want to change stuff. And I think this is a very important challenge that you have here at the IAAC, because with all the digital tools, the machines you have, and the balance you are doing with all the guests and the lecturers, and I really enjoy, for example, Luca Galofaro lecture because he doesn't use any digital tool to produce, but the thinking he was sharing with us in the lecture was the perfect complement to use the tools, because you think in a different way, in a new way, and then you can use the tools to produce real interesting and necessary projects. In this sense, I really like this project. It was created by in the US also by a guy called Cody Wilson, and he was the first one who designed a gun produced by a 3D printed machine. It is very controversial, of course, because the first reaction is to think, oh, you are producing guns, it's not a good project, no? You can produce your own gun and go and make robberies or kill people or whatever. But what it is very interesting, in my opinion also, is that it's the kind of projects that makes you think about all the back stage behind each project, because you can think, okay, it's true, guns are a very bad stuff. There are millions of people dying everywhere in the world because the existence of guns. But why this gun is illegal, and why, if the gun has the stamp of a big corporation, a manufacturer, they are free to sell the guns? Especially in this case, in a country in the United States that it's legal to have a gun. So it's very thought-provoking to try to understand the system, the economical system. Why these people can do it and I can't, and why this is legal and this is not. So it's I think the power of this project is not the object at the end. It's all the critical thinking that makes you react and try to understand the system we are living. Because if we don't understand that system, we will not find the good way or the good projects that will come together to try to make this change we are requesting with the protest we saw before. We are protesting against the bank, against the politics, against corruption, against Bárcenas, and we are designing only the superficial part of these needs. Also, the same happens with the 3D printers machines. Even if 3D printers has a long history, more than 25 years, but they has been being commercialized in the past 6-7 years. And you can have your own printing machine, and on the internet you can find a lot of blogs saying that it's the new paradigm because everybody can do whatever they want and commercialize using the Kickstarter page and you will be rich in 1 week. But the main problem with 3D printers is not the machine, because even if it's expensive, there are models that you can build by yourself. The big controversy behind 3D printers is the material manufacturers, because they are big industries as Henkel or Sika, and until now they are monopolizing all the material sellings and distribution. So again, and sorry to be so repetitive, but the problem is the same, it's capitalism. If we don't think how we are going to use these machines from the basis, there is no change, even if we have our house or our school full of 3D printers. In that sense, that's why I'm bringing this project. It's called Stratigraphic Manufacturing, because it's an experiment. It's not a project to sell or something. These guys from Netherlands have designed these objects with STL models to download and print on the 3D printers, but they have created a platform on the internet where they ask for contributors everywhere in the world to download the models, to respect that models, not to change it, but to use new materials, local materials, when they print the model. So they have a big bunch of objects to compare which materials are better, which not, and try to experiment with new materials. And until now it has been very, very successful, because they have collected objects from everywhere, from Australia, from Latin America, from Europe. And you can see that even the projects are not perfect. You can see the imperfections here. It's not very close. You cannot use it to have soup, for example, because you have the imperfections, or this one. But the richness of the project is that you can compare the materials and you can decide and you can analyze why it doesn't work good with this form, but with another shape, maybe it works, and try to adapt. And it's a way to react to the monopoly of polymers and plastics that has been used until now for the 3D printers. So I think it's very interesting. In Adhocracy, we also we set up a big installation, and they were producing the models there, and it was very, very funny, to see how some pots break up because the material was really bad. Another was fantastic, very well done, and try to compare why and have lectures with them to share their knowledge. So I think these kind of projects are very needed nowadays. So we can avoid to, again, get in the hands of the monopolies and the big corporations. And also the internet now allows us to open collaboration, because this project they did with the plants and the machines they have, these pots, and they created with the open structures project, the one we talked before, they created that this is a coffee machine, and it works fantastic. So the way these guys from Holland are working with the other from Belgium, and how you can freely collaborate, I think it's one of the richness that we need to save and to preserve, at the same time that we are researching in the other parts of the process that are not so close or so good, and that need to be reinvented. Also, we have this, we were talking about Bitcoins before, and one of the main complaints is, okay, but if you don't understand what is Bitcoins, because you are not a hacker or a geek person that can work with algorithms producing Bitcoins, how can you try to change the system and to reach more people? So this guy from Switzerland, I think, has designed this ATM machine. The first one was presented in Canada a few months ago, where you can put your cash, your euros here, scan the QR code of your digital wallet, and then you have it in Bitcoins. So even if it's not perfect, because you are still trying to exchange dollars, and it's a mix-up of models, but at least it's trying to reach more people and to make a change, and more people that doesn't have access to this knowledge of how to create new Bitcoins and generate them using the algorithms, you can try to reach and taste it, and go then to Berlin and have your hamburger and decide if it's good or not. So it's I think it's a very provocative project in that sense. By the way, we were reading that two guys here in Barcelona was trying to put four of these machines around the city. This is the map of the machines they have, and they were not allowed to do that because you cannot measure the taxes of this money. So the government banned the project, and they weren't allowed. So I think that maybe these kind of people, they will find another place when the Agencia Tributaria cannot reach them and try to experiment. I think they will do. I hope so. But you know, when these kind of new projects crash because they collapse with the traditional system, is the moment that you need to start thinking again, okay, how I go beyond the ATM machine, and how I do a new kind of project. So I think it's a very, I don't know, very interesting way of thinking about these issues, and also to not stop our designs and our critical thinking and our desire of experiment with new things, because we are going to always to face with a big wall, because the traditional system, it's very powerful, but it's not, we need to act as Gordon Matta Clark when he make these calls and try to get inside the system. I think this is the only way that, at this moment, that we need these big changes, is the only way to go further. This is dedicated to Manuel, because in Lucas' lecture we were talking that here at the IAAC, that you have all these tools. It's a, I don't know, it's a wonderful place to be studying. I would love to, when I was young, to have a place like that, because we were talking about the name of the institute and how we can understand that the word advance means the combination of this, the attitude of understand this critical thinking on trying to go beyond, trying to reach the roots of our problems, and then use all the tools we have here to try to go further. And I think it's very interesting and very provocative for all of you, the students here, to try to use properly all these tools you have. So I want to end with 2 projects that has nothing to do with digital, but that will make us think about the problems we have and how other people that doesn't have the tools are reacting, so we can understand this basis and then try to think how we are going to go further. This is a project in United States that you all know that in United States there is a lot of conflicts with lot of countries when they don't agree with a commercial exchange or politically or with the about weapons exchange. So this group of people created a kitchen because they know that food is something that gives you an emotional connection with the other people that you share food. And also when you are having food, it's a way when you start talking with each other, even if you go alone to a restaurant. Well, nowadays it's more difficult because we are always with the mobile phone looking, but a few years ago, even if you go alone to a restaurant, you start talking with the person who was sitting beside you. So they relate the issue of food with the knowledge exchange to make people aware why their country is in conflict with other countries and try to really understand these problems. So they have created this conflict kitchen, and you can see that, for example, they set up the small like pop-up restaurants with only the local food of the country they are researching or trying to visualize at that moment. Here they are based in based all the food they are selling in the Venezuelan recipes. Also here you can see in a park that they are doing with the Cuban. And also it's really interesting because for us, for César and for me, it also brings on the table the question, because we as publishers are always trying to research which is the best way to communicate problems, ideas, culture, as Manuel was saying. And sometimes, and even nowadays, with the lot of information, we have nobody reads the news, a whole newspaper. Everybody are used to reading diagonal and just the main words, the bold letters. So maybe this is not only a way of protesting and taking action, but also to communicate the problems in a way that people will pay attention again. On the menus, they have different menus for the country, depending which country they are researching. So they are using also this moment when you are relaxed, because when you are having food, you are always relaxed, and you are almost all the time enjoying. So they take advantage of this moment to really communicate which is the root of the problem with that conflict and with that country, so people can understand it in another way. And also because the news, we know how mass media works, censored, or it depends on the government, on the power, the way they communicate. So this is another way to communicate beyond and beside that, that way. And this is another project, very low tech, but also related with the need we have to talk and exchange ideas nowadays. That has been designed by Pablo Calderón, who studies in the Design Academy of Eindhoven. And he realized, because the Design Academy of Eindhoven is like the new Bauhaus, let's say, they are working really in deep and very active with new designs, with open models, open structures, everything, peer-to-peer production. And he was studying there, and then in a day he was telling us that he felt like overload with so many projects, so many objects, and he was missing the opportunity to talk why his friends and why his teachers were designing all of this. And also, going back to the main topic of the lecture, he was trying to discover which is the economical basis of all these projects. Why I'm producing things that maybe I don't need. No? So he designed this small intervention called the other market. And he was going with his car, very similar to the Luis Fraguada here, a small one with the bike, and he was going from place to place every weekend. And it's called the other market because his way to attract people to talk was always making an exchange. For example, this time, he has two friends that know how to make good haircuts, etc. So that he exchanged haircuts only if the people talk about property. Their problems, their desires, their ideas, and start collecting knowledge and exchanging knowledge. Other day, he exchanged cinema, and the people was there, but at the end, he requested, of course, instead of asking for money to watch the movie, he asked for time of the people to talk. And also this one, he was exchanging clothes, also for share ideas. When, I don't know if you remember a few months ago that we read on the news that a lot of people in Bangladesh was killed in a factory because they were working to produce the clothes we use here in Europe. So he was afraid of that, aware of that problem, and he put the car to start just trying to analyze how people think about these problems, to know then in the school when they design stuff, how to understand all the people's ideas and try to make a proper project as a reaction to that ideas. And it was very shocking because, of course, a lot of people was also afraid that this situation is happening, but he found people that was selling, no, it's okay, I don't care that people die there because we are giving money to them, we are giving work. So when he found this kind of reactions from the people passing by the street, it was like, okay, come on, there is a lot of people that thinks that, and how we can communicate the opposite and try to react to this, not only to the system referring to banks or governments, but also to a cultural system that a lot of people think that it's working good and we need to change from the root. So I think this is very interesting to recover the power of talking and speaking to each other and not be always in front of the computer producing new stuff. And that's why for the presentation we choose the title of "Its Economy is Stupid," because it came, the anecdote is that it came from James Carville, that was an advisor for the Clinton campaign in 1992. And they were, when they were preparing the campaign on how to reach more voters and more people, some advisors were telling, okay, we need to focus on healthcare because everybody wants healthcare, so they will vote us. Another was, we need to use the word change because everybody, when you have elections, wants a change. Okay, and James Carville came and said, the economy is stupid. You have to talk about economy, but because everybody wants to talk about economy, and economy is in every minute of our life. So the other advisors were so shocked about the strength of the quote that it was the quote they used in the advertisement. The economy is stupid with the word, and it was so powerful that Clinton won those elections. So we wanted to use that to make this new critical lecture, to trying to motivate you to start going back again to the roots of our problems, and to, I don't know, to motivate you to use all the rich tools we have now, but trying to solve the real problems, and also experiment. I'm not saying that we always need to be so serious and only trying to hack the banks. No, you can have joy also designing and doing new stuff, but don't forget to think on the important things that surround us every day, that it's economy, culture, social, politics. They are on the basis of everyday life, so don't forget them. And, oh, this is the one. Thank you. This is not, as Clinton quote, it's not to gain votes. It's sincere. We are researching a lot and discussing a lot, and we have no idea what the answers are, so we would love to hear your voices.
Well, it's not a question.
It's not a question.
It's an answer. No. Well, thank you very much. It was absolutely exciting and fantastic. The first thing is that I am a little depressed because it was so full of imagination, this, and I realized that I don't have imagination probably because it's incredible the capacity of these projects to be projects of this. And I think probably in this equation, advanced is attitude with tools. I have a lot of attitude. We have tools, but to be advanced, we need also imagination today. It was not always as this, because for a long time, the question was craft, or the question was well-made, or the question was... But today, we need a lot of imagination. Attitude, tools, and imagination. And the other thing was this paradox that you are very interested in the economy, but at the same time, you want to be critic, and at the end also realistic and idealistic, etc. But this is our time, this paradox. And I think that I like a lot this lecture, because for you, and I think for here, the critic is not only resistance. The critic, the idea of critic, the traditional idea of critic was resistance or defense. But today we know that to be critic is to be proactive at the same time. We can be critic and proposals. We can project and critic. And this is a thing very curious. It was not in the tradition of the idea of the critic. The critic was always a guy who was trying to found the not the negative things, but the failures of the things. No? Now we can be critic and we need to be proactive at the same time. And this is a paradox of our time, but this time is a time of paradox because we have in our time of exchange of information. And when you have a lot of exchange of information, you are always doing interactions between informations, and sometimes they are paradox. And well, the first thing is thank you very much, because it was very clear, this idea. It's not easy to explain. Perhaps you can explain that today we need to be pragmatic and utopian, idealistic and realistic, critics and proposals, no? And all this was there. The imagination in every project was critic to the system and in the system, infiltrate and out, there and in another place, no? And for this reason I said it's full of imagination. We need to have this imagination also here in the IAAC. This imagination who is doing, no? Making, and at the same time with a capacity to have a gaze not how to say, not in a comfort way, and not only accepting their things, but also criticizing the situation. No? And thank you very much, Ethel. That was an answer.
Yes, thank you. It was fantastic. I think now the people around these kind of projects and working in this call this critical action, because it's a way to synthesize all that you have said. Yes, so I think it's the difference.
It's very interesting to think about when we talk. This is very interesting I was also like, thank you very much, Ethel, first of all. I think, continue a bit what Manuel has started to think, I was thinking that this idea of the design, no? The fact that there are so many alternatives on the design that at the end of the day, you actually, it's not like you design and you fabricate or produce a product, but you design an idea and you are fabricating an action, and you produce from a very small operation a very global impact, no? Or a big impact. And I think that's the power of design, and the design is changing, designers are changing, the nature of how we used to design as a process and as a thinking, and the tools that we used to have are changing, and this is absolutely related with social and political and economical situation. And of course it's absolutely related as well with the technology, but the technology is not the final let's say goal, and that you can also see in the you know, in all this project of 3D printing is a kind of new technology of how we can, it's a new technology in digital fabrication. All the other technologies of CNC milling or laser cutting, we used to have it during the second industrial revolution. But the additive manufacturing technique, it is a new technique. But the way that those people are using it, the way that the hackers, let's say, or the makers use it, it's a contribution to the change of the process of the design. And I think that's very important to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, it's not the ability to keep on designing and fabricating much more complex things, no? It's more like using those tools to change realities. And I think we thank you for that, because there was a lot of inspiration there of thinking how to deal with this. Questions for Ethel?
To me, it's just funny that you're talking about these open designs for 3D printers and all that, but suddenly, who has access to these machines? Because, I mean, you guys here in IAAC, you can have access, but I study at its up, and we don't even have laser cutters. So, I mean, it's just a little bit of utopian what he was saying. It's something we all want, but who can have it? So.
Thank you. By the way, yes, I agree, partially, because if we keep thinking and designing, for example, there are some maker booths that you can build yourself. So, and that's why I was telling that the main problem is maybe the material and not the machine. And of course, the biggest percentage of average of the of people cannot have it yet. But if we use this imagination and new ways, or maybe it's not a 3D printer, it's another tool. But that is the richness of experimentation, I think. And because if we think, okay, I will not design this because it's very difficult to reach people, nobody does nothing new. But for example, this guy that did the ATM machine, it's not the paradox of Bitcoin and how many machines you can have in the world, but at least it's trying to reach more people that if it's only on the internet and somewhere, and it's a step, and then another one based on that maybe can invent another step, and then you can start reaching a path to try to get to more people. So I think that you are right in the basis, but we need to be, in this case, maybe more utopian, and don't try to be so pessimistic, because the system is already make us pessimist. So if we don't react and try to do new things, we will get lost in that system and just going to the street to protest, but doing nothing. So maybe we need to find the balance and be aware of that you are saying. If you are aware of that, you can do something to solve that. So it's good that you are aware. So it's a way to trying to find at least not the solution, but a small step to go further.
kind of an urban phenomenon, I would say, that could maybe answer to your question, is the fact that in our cities they start to appear like new kind of services and new kind of infrastructure, the Makers Lab, the Fab Labs. It's not necessarily meaning that you need to have a machine on your desktop, which would be like something very quick to happen, the same as it happened with our inkjet printer. But it's not so much to have it in your desktop or in your home, but we are at the moment that you can have it like as a service within your area, no? So you can go and find this kind. I think this is also very important, to start thinking not in an individual scale, but in a more collective scale, and in a more even, let's say, city and urban scale. This is fundamental. I agree that every school should have it, but even if they don't, I think it's not that complicated anymore to get access to this technology as it used to be before. You know, now you can have a 3D printer with a with a $600 actually, if you get the first model of the MakerBot. Not for an individual use, but for a school use. So it's very viable, it's very feasible. It's not that far away anymore. A commercial one is costing $25,000. It's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. You're always welcome to come.
Okay, thank you very much.